I would like to call to order Planning and Zoning meeting, March 17th, 2014. This is a regular meeting. And first order of business is to have roll call.
Mrs. Protos?
Here.
Mr. Parker?
Here.
Mr. Carr?
Here.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
Here.
Mr. Gialusis?
Here.
Ms. St. Arnold?
Here.
Mr. Vinson?
Here.
Chairman Francis?
Here. Okay, now we're going to have the quasi-judicial announcement and swearing in of speakers. Anybody who's going to speak this evening has to take this oath. And I'll turn this over to our attorney, Mr. Daigneault.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The three items on the agenda tonight are quasi-judicial in nature. At a quasi-judicial proceeding, this board acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At such a hearing, it is not this board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. Excuse me. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If that evidence demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the code, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By that same token, if that evidence demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to recommend against the applicant. There is an established procedure which will be followed at this hearing. All witnesses must give their testimony under oath. All persons testifying at this hearing must give their name and address for the record. All testimony and questioning at this hearing must address matters that are relevant and material to the issues under consideration. The city staff will present its testimony and evidence first. The applicant will then have an opportunity to cross-examine the city staff. The applicant will then present its testimony and witnesses. The city staff will have an opportunity to cross-examine the applicant's witnesses. Members of the public opposing the application will then be given an opportunity to present testimony. After all members of the public speaking in opposition to the application have concluded, members of the public in support of the application will have an opportunity to present testimony. Each member of the public is limited to 4 minutes of testimony. The applicant will then have an opportunity to make a closing argument or summary, after which city staff will be given an opportunity to make a closing argument or summary. Following this, the board will consider the matter. Board members may ask questions of witnesses at this point in the proceedings. A motion will be made and a vote will be taken. At this time, I would ask the board to disclose any ex parte communications they've had regarding the three applications on tonight's agenda. Seeing none, we can move on to the first agenda item after I've sworn the witnesses, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask anyone who's going to testify tonight to please stand and be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Today we will move on and start with application 13-98, Mirabella Associates, and we'll have the staff report first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is application 13-98 from Mirabella Associates. This is an annexation application for approximately 3.1 acres of property annexing from Pinellas County into the city of Tarpon Springs. At the same time, we will also be addressing the appropriate future land use and zoning. The property is located at the southeast corner of North Pinellas Avenue and Enclote Road East. As I said, the property does contain 3.1 acres. The applicant, just a way of explanation, owns some adjacent property that's already in the city of Tarpon Springs, and they are seeking to get all of their property into one jurisdiction for zoning and land use purposes. There's no
Excuse me, can you get the mic closer,
Sure.
please?
There are no development plans that have been discussed at this point in time. This is simply an annexation. The property is currently in Pinellas County under the land use categories of commercial general and on the north piece and preservation on the south piece. Those two land uses will remain in place when it's annexed into the city of Tarpon Springs. The Pinellas County zoning designation on the north piece is C1, neighborhood commercial, and the south piece is agriculture estate. We are proposing that when the property is annexed in, the zoning will become GB on the north piece, general business for the city of Tarpon Springs, and since the south piece is in preservation status and really has no development potential, we're recommending it be zoned to land conservation, LC. Under the review criteria, the property is contiguous to the existing Tarpon Springs municipal limits and will reduce the size of an existing enclave, and it will not create an enclave, and it is deemed as reasonably compact, and so it's eligible for annexation into the city of Tarpon Springs. There's absolutely no question about the city's ability to provide public facilities to this property. It's getting virtually all of its public facilities and services now, with the exception of police, and that will, when they annex in, they will become under the City of Tarpon Springs Police Department as well. The proposed, as I stated, the proposed land use will not change from that of Pinellas County. It will remain commercial, general, and preservation. And the city, the property is within the City of Tarpon Springs defined annexation planning area. You have all the technical review committee comments in your backup. Anything that was there has been addressed. Since we've advertised this, we've had 3 inquiries verbally, either walk-ins or on the phone, from adjoining property owners, predominantly live in the townhomes adjoining, just wanting to know what it was. They saw the yellow sign up and inquired as to what they were doing, essentially. Did not express any opposition or support for the application. The staff recommendation is as follows: to approve the request for annexation, which will be ordinance 2014-04, to approve the application of the future land use designation of commercial general on the north piece and P preservation on the Tarpon Springs future land use map. That will be ordinance 2014-05, and to approve providing for the general business zoning designation on the north piece and land conservation zoning districts on the south piece on the official zoning map of the City of Tarpon Springs, and that will be ordinance 2014-03. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time in the hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your report. And we'll start down here with Ms. St. Arnold. Do you have any questions for
Nope.
staff?
No questions at this time.
Mr. Stavropoulos, do you have any?
No questions.
Mr. Vincent?
Renee, can you tell me if this annexation has anything to do with a change of any transferable development rights?
Not to my knowledge.
And the other question I had was the street that goes just to the north of the property. Is that a public right-of-way or is that a private street?
It's a public right-of-way. It is essentially East Anclote Road.
Okay, because it's sure it looks pretty narrow, and I was just wondering if it met the specs, because it's...
Well, yeah, it's normal until then it chokes down to this, not exactly sure what the origin of that is, but that is right-of-way.
Okay,
Or I'll say it's publicly platted land. It's not, it may not be, it's obviously not sufficient for a right-of-way to go all the way through as it's platted.
okay, because that was one of my concerns. If that's a public right-of-way, if there's any development on that parcel, if that road doesn't meet the standards, and it's a public road, maybe that should be encouraged, the developer encouraged to bring it up to standards.
At such time that it would be, that parcel would be developed, we would look at the existing conditions of that road. That wasn't really required to be brought up to standards when the townhomes went in, but we certainly would look at that again as part of any development that would come in.
Okay. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Carr?
I had a question about the road too, but that's been answered. Thanks.
Sorry, Mr. Joe-Lucis? do you have any
No questions.
Mr. Parker?
Yeah, no questions.
Mrs. Protus?
Mr. Vincent had the one question I was concerned about answered, but this has been a long time coming to annex this piece of property to make it compatible with what we have in our land use here in the city, and I urge the board to vote it to accept it unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, if not, we'll hear from the applicant. Please come to the lectern. Give us your name and address. You have 10 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Joe Kokolakis. My brother and I are here representing our family. We're the owners of both Anclote River Plaza immediately to the north and this property in question. At this point, as Ms. Proto said, I think it's a long time coming. We've owned this property for a long time as a family. We're trying to consolidate it all within the city of Tarpon Springs, and ultimately develop the property. So I got 9 minutes and 30 seconds left.
Okay, we'll start with questions of the applicant with Ms. St. Arnold.
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Staropoulos, you have any questions?
No questions at this.
Mr. Vincent,
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Carr,
No, sir.
Mr. Giulius,
No questions.
Mr. Parker,
Yeah, no questions.
Mr. Protus.
Thank you for finally coming with this piece, because it's like an orphan out there sitting alone by itself all these years. It's time.
It is.
Okay, just have a seat right there in case there's any questions from the audience. Okay, at this time, I would like to ask, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against this annexation? Is there anyone who wants to speak for it? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting and entertain a motion for acceptance.
I'll make a motion that we approve the annexation of the 3.1 acres on the southeast corner of North Pinellas Avenue and Anclote Road East.
Second.
Motion has been made, and there's a second discussion.
Do we need to have in the motion, I'm directing this, I guess, to the city attorney, Mr. Chair. Do we need to have in the motion the zoning that's going to be applied to this? Is this a one-step or two-step operation?
No, you'd be, in your motion, be approving the recommendation as it's been adopted in the staff report.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
It's
Roll
just too
call.
bad we don't know what the tax increase will be.
Don't know. Roll call.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
Yes.
Mr. Gialusis?
Yes.
Ms. St. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Chairman Francis?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. You have 7 minutes left. Okay, we'll see you. The next application is, 1 second. I have it here. Okay, this is application 1406, Mihalidis. Staff report.
Thank you. This is application 14-06 for property at 498 Athens Street. This application is for a conditional use approval for a Series 2 COP on-premise consumption of beer and wine for this particular location. This property has been several restaurants in the past, including Santorini Breads and Specialties, a cafe. It's been an eating establishment off and on through the years. There's also been a beer and wine license at this particular location in the past, back in 1999 and 2000. Under our review criteria for approving alcohol licenses, you can see in the staff report, this particular location is not within the distance separation requirements for distance from churches or schools, so it's compliant with that. The following criteria we don't anticipate any negative effects from this request on surrounding properties. This entire area has similar on-premise consumption for beer and wine throughout the docks. We really don't, as you can see through the review criteria, we don't anticipate any issues with this additional license. We find that the property is the use is appropriate to the property in question and is compatible with existing and planned uses in the area, as well as consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and there are no adverse impacts expected on environmental or historical resources, nor is there any adverse impact expected upon commercial development patterns or the ability of the city to provide public services. TRC reviewed this on February 27th and did recommend and had no objections to the request. We've received no public correspondence on this application since public notification. Staff recommendation is to approve the conditional use request to grant a Series 2 COP on-premise consumption of beer and wine alcohol license for 498 Athens Street in the T5C zoning district. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time during the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Start with Ms. St. Arnold. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any, thank you.
Mr. Stavropoulos? any
No
questions? Mr. Vincent?
Just one question. Is this what formerly was known as Zorbas at one time? Is that the building?
No, this
Across the
is,
street,
Oh, it's across the street from it? Or next to it?
on the side of the coffee shop there, the empty
Okay.
lot.
Thank you. No other questions.
Mr. Carr?
I have a question. I saw that looks like to the south, it's has residential. This is a concern that it's not necessarily for this applicant for the beer and wine consumption, but the aspect of a commercial property being next to residential. They have dumpsters and so on that come through, and then the dump trucks come through the town at like 6:30 in the morning and starts banging stuff around. We have a concern for music at night for noise ordinances, but we don't really have a concern, I don't think, for the garbage trucks that come through and service these restaurants. I know there's supposed to be like an 8 o'clock or some time constraint, but I don't think that's really enforced. And looking at the residential, just to be respectful for them, I think that would be something that should be addressed with waste management with our contract with them.
I would suggest that just having that be an advisory comment, if the board is, as a whole is concerned about that, we can certainly address that. I mean, this whole area is subject to that particular, noise, for garbage collection. So to single out one particular property at this point, I think it needs probably to look at
As a whole, I think it should
as
be
a
addressed.
whole,
but,
exactly. It is a mixed-use area, so there are expectations that you're just going to have some of those types of noise concerns in that area.
Can I have any other questions?
Excuse me, but what time do they start? I mean,
Garbage collection goes very early in the morning. I'm honestly not sure when they actually collect down at the docks. I can, I would have to do some research and give you a call back on that, but I honestly don't know exactly what time Waste Management goes out and collects down there.
okay, if you could do that for Mr. Carr and
We can do that.
Mr. Giulius.
No questions.
Yeah,
Mr.
no
Parker?
questions.
11 o'clock is still the limit on the noise, right? Because of the residential area there.
Can you bring the mic closer, Ms.
Yeah,
Parker?
11 o'clock is when the noise has to stop or go down.
It falls under our general noise ordinance, which is it's really a nuisance, and and you have I don't have it in front of me. I'll ask the city attorney to pull it up.
I'm not sure.
But yes, I think there are established hours in our code about loud and raucous behavior and what constitutes a nuisance, but there's not an absolute decibel level. It's, it's a judgment call on the part of the police if they call. But if you'll give us a second, we'll give you the hours.
It used to be 11 p.m.
Well, you're not to continually make loud or raucous noise, so we should all be aware of that tonight.
I don't know if there's actually a set time anymore. I think it's.
I don't see a time in the code.
It's why there's not a time. 'Cause it's not
Okay.
Because it may be as offensive at 11 a.m. as it is 11 p.m., so perhaps the code was set with that sort of somewhat subjective criteria for that reason. So you don't have a time in the code.
And the only other thing I was surprised to see, on page 4, it mentioned the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs, but it didn't mention St. Michael's Shrine, which is also a church in a sense. And that should be mentioned also in this.
Thank you for pointing that out. It's not typically recognized in our staff reports as a church.
But it is. It's a shrine, but it
is a
is
shrine.
used as a church, and they have services there. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is what they've had there before.
Yes,
And it is
they have
allowed
had
the right of
services
free
there.
enterprise.
I think they have something every year.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, any other questions for staff? If not, I will ask the applicant to come forward to the lectern. I'd like to have the name and address. Okay.
general description of what your business is and what you're asking for.
Oh, okay. Good evening.
Good.
I'm just asking, to get the application accepted. Oh, my name is Irene Stamos. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Mihailidis, because he wasn't able to be here tonight. And, I don't know what else.
Your address.
Oh, 498 Athens Street, Tarpon Springs.
Just give us a brief idea of what you plan to do.
Oh, it's an eating establishment, a taverna, or rotisserie chicken, charcoal broiled steaks.
Okay.
Greek food, home
Yes.
cooked Greek food.
And
All right.
not a fat eating place.
We got it. Questions for the applicant? Mr. Arnold?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
No questions.
Mr. Vincent?
Are there any plans to have any music playing out of doors?
No, absolutely not.
Thank you. No further questions.
None.
Carr?
Nope.
No questions.
Mr. Parker?
Nope, no questions.
Mrs. Protus?
Another eating establishment on your diet. It'll be good.
Yes. Okay. Just have a seat there for a minute.
Thank you, thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this application?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to speak
In the
against
public,
this
yes.
application? Okay, come on up, and you have to be sworn in first.
Wasn't sworn in.
Just stand and get sworn in by our attorney, please. No, stand right there.
Realize it's on this.
Can you raise your right hand, please, sir? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, sir.
Okay, go over to the lectern and give us your name and address first, please.
And let me caution you before we do this that this particular part of this hearing is intended for public input on the application, not necessarily question and answer of the board or the city staff.
My name is John Donnell. I live at 534 Rivercrest Lane. For some of you, you'll know it as the only modern buildings that are down in that historic district. It's the condo townhouses. Okay, so I'm looking right at it. My big concern is I'm looking at this card, okay, and I see it covers it looks like it covers 498, covers the coffee house next door and the parking lot. My concern is this, and I don't have a problem with another eating establishment, but, if it's a liquor license for a coffee house, I'm not going to be happy. And I'll leave it at that.
It's not liquor.
Because it's just filled with guys down there playing cards. Okay?
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right.
Good. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against this application? Okay, is there anyone who wishes to speak for the application? Seeing none, close the public portion of the meeting and entertain a motion for acceptance.
I'll make a motion that we accept application 14-06 as it stands.
Second.
A motion and a second discussion. Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
Yes.
Mr. Gialusis?
Yes.
Ms. St. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Chairman Francis?
Yes. Thank you. We will now move to application 14-08, Reload Indoor Shooting Range, and we will have a staff report first.
Mr. Chairman, before I begin, I just want to go ahead and pass these down. This is from the applicant that will be relevant later on in the
Okay.
hearing. I would also like to call attention before I do the staff report to there were two handouts that were in front of your chairs. The one is an assessment by our economic development director of the potential economic benefit of the potential project, and then the second is a set of public comments that we've received over the last week to 10 days I apologize that they didn't get out to you sooner so you could digest them. Mr. Chapman put the staff report together and went on vacation, and then they were kind of collecting, so hopefully you'll have a chance to read through those as we go through the hearing. Again, this is application 14-08 for Reload Indoor Shooting Range. The proposed project is located at 40,050 U.S. Highway 19 North, or 40,050 U.S. Highway 19 North. This is the site of the old Days Inn and IHOP restaurant. Property contains 4.39 acres and is zoned highway business with a land use of commercial limited. The prior site was contained 79,890 square feet. As I said, that was the IHOP and the Days Inn. That property's been vacant for approximately 10 years and is in deteriorating condition. The applicant has the property under contract to demolish the restaurant and the motel and to construct a 57,533 square feet indoor shooting range, as well as two 5,500 square foot flex warehouse buildings that will be to the rear of the property. So that would be between Stonehenge and the actual shooting range. The zoning regulations, under the zoning, we classify this as a commercial recreation use, which is a permitted use in the highway business zoning district. And just for the record, there will be a meeting with Stonehenge on the Hill Mobile Home Park by the applicants. That's their meeting. It's not necessarily a public meeting, but that will take place in March. They've arranged to meet with those residents and discuss the plans with them, so that will be prior to the Board of Commissioners review in April. Technical Review Committee reviewed this, and we did get a revised set of plans that addressed all of the various comments at that point in time. They did modify the plans for buffering, landscaping, some technical, some Scrivener's errors on parking, numbers and things of that nature. The revised plans that you did receive did address all the Technical Review Committee comments. Under the site plan review criteria, as we stated, this is a 57,533 square foot indoor shooting range, as well as two 5,500 square foot flex warehouse buildings. The proposed schedule will be to demo and construct the indoor shooting range first, and then the flex warehouse buildings will occur within the next 3 to 5 years. They are part of this site plan approval application, however. All utilities are available to the site. Ingress and egress is via one access point on US Highway 19 North, so they will actually be closing an access point. They're required to have 177 off-street parking spaces. 173. They're providing 177. The landscaping plan is provided in sheet 6. It consists of the addition of 106 trees, consisting of laurel oaks, East Palatka hollies, live oaks, palms, red cedars, as well as 3-foot and 4.5-foot hedges on the perimeters for buffering requirements. You don't need to update any of the sidewalk requirements. Those are there. Under the environmental, the applicant has submitted an acoustical analysis that was prepared by Fagan Acoustical Consultants, which demonstrates that there is no sound there will be no sound from the indoor shooting range that will travel beyond the property lines. Essentially, my understanding of the acoustical analysis is that what you might hear on the outside of the building will be less than what the ambient noise is from Highway 19 at any given point in time. There are no issues with our level of service standards so far as transportation impacts are concerned. This use is actually a decrease in overall proposed trips generated on US 19 compared to the prior use when it was full and and actually open. They will be providing on-site drainage and retention, and again, there are really no issues with levels of service for this application. In the backup, you'll see a set of fairly detailed. You have the site plan as well as some color renderings. What the interior layout is actually proposed to be. There will be several different shooting ranges. There will be a retail space. There will be a cafe space as well as classroom space. I'm sure the applicant will expound more on about what they are will be providing. You also have some exhibits that demonstrate a very sophisticated ventilation and lead collection system, and I think they'll explain that as well. But essentially, all the lead gets immediately collected and it gets recycled and it goes, so it's a pretty high-tech system. You also have exhibits for the construction assembly with regard to the walls. It will be double wall construction on the exterior. Which gives it that good, acoustical property that I'm sure that they'll provide more detail on. The handout that I provided just now that I handed out was more of a summary of the findings of the acoustical analysis. And with that, I think I will stop. As I said, we have to consider this under the commercial recreation. It does meet the land development code requirements as it's presented, as well as the comprehensive plan. And the staff recommendation is to approve the site plan for the 57,533 square foot indoor shooting range and 2 5,500 square foot flex warehouse buildings, subject to the following. Number one, the developer is responsible for acquiring all other jurisdictional permits and for meeting the minimum criteria of the land development code. Number two, construction plans signed and sealed by a registered engineer licensed to practice in the state of Florida must be submitted within 1 year of the date of final site plan approval. Number three, the site plan shall expire within 1 year of the effective date unless an application has been filed for a building permit. And number four, the architecture of the building must be substantially similar to the elevation/rendering submitted by the applicant. And then I do want to call attention again to the correspondence that was on your desk in front of you. There were 7 pieces of correspondence, and which all were in opposition to the proposed range. Some were from organizations and some were from individuals. Thank you.
Okay. Staff report. Now we'll entertain questions for staff. Start with Ms. St. Arnold.
No questions right now. Thank you.
Mr. Stavropoulos, questions for staff?
No, all my questions have been answered in the information here.
Mr. Vincent?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Carr?
Is there with gun ranges, is there like an annual, check inspection to make sure like the back walls haven't been compromised for like the use? I'm not really familiar with gun ranges and how they work inside, but that would be a concern I would have for the building, people parking behind it, and et cetera. So I don't know if that's a question for you or the applicant.
I'm going to let the applicant answer that at the appropriate time because I am not an expert on gun ranges either.
Okay. Also, I was looking through the landscape plan. I saw it looks like laurel oaks are being planted in the parking lot. I couldn't tell the difference between that and I think red cedar. I know the difference between the plants, but laurel oak is a tree that you wouldn't want to plant in a parking lot, and I wasn't sure if the arborist was able to review the landscape plan or if that happened at all.
It was reviewed. I didn't get any concerns expressed, but we can make a note to have that looked at again make sure that it's covered by the arborist, but we'll find another more suitable parking lot tree.
That'd be a concern for mine because the way those trees grow, they grow horizontal with roots, and they're going to disrupt the parking lot and pretty much destroy it. So
we'll take a second look at that.
Okay. That's all the questions I have right now.
Mr. Jalous?
My only question is the city or the state, is somebody responsible for monitoring whether this building is indeed generating lead contamination?
I'm going to have to let the applicant answer that. Again, we don't have any, the city doesn't enforce state, level regulations. It's like we can't even require now that they have a swift mud permit in hand when they come in for construction. So
Right.
We're limited in what we can do. I'll let the applicant perhaps address that, at that point in time.
Okay. That's it.
Mr. Parker?
I don't have any questions for her at all, no, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Brothers?
I could wait when it gets time to make the motion, but I made several calls around about the company
Can you bring the mic closer,
to
please?
different gun organizations and gun businesses, and this group enjoys the highest reputation within the United States and the state of Florida for what they produce in communities and in cities. They also give education on gun use and education on the proper handling of guns. They were very highly exonerated for this, and like I said, they enjoy a very fine reputation in their business. more so than any other. If you call around, even the National Rifle Association will tell you that.
And thank
And
you.
let me remind the board before we get too far down the road here that your standards here for site plan review are limited by your code in section 210-04. Whether the site plan application meets all the applicable provisions of the code, the city's comprehensive plan, its concurrency management system, and applicable building codes as of right this moment.
All right, thank you very much, because what you just said is very important, and we want to limit our questions and responses to what we're here to do this evening. Okay, now it's time to, are there any other questions for staff at this time? If not, I'd like to have the applicant come forward to the lectern and give us your name and address, please.
Good evening, Justin Floyd with Whole Development, 630 Chestnut Street, Clearwater, Florida, 33756. First off, I'd like to thank the board for their time tonight. We're very excited about this project, as well as Ms. Vincent for her due diligence and thoroughness up to this point. Just briefly want to talk a little bit about the range, and then be more than happy to answer all your questions and address a couple of the questions you've already had. We really look at this range as accomplishing three things. Number one, it was already mentioned, getting rid of a dilapidated hotel that has probably 5 pages of police reports that go along with it, everything from homeless people living in it to drug use as well. And it's also currently there's ceilings falling down. It's a condemned building for the most part, so there is no use for it. Not to mention it's not creating any tax revenue for the city of Tarpon Springs right now. The second part to that is the actual range. We want to provide a state-of-the-art building that not only the public can enjoy and practice and be educated, but also law enforcement as well. You probably saw in the notes it's got a full tactical range, which was a rather large expense, but that's something that we wanted to do to give law enforcement the opportunity to train. The Tarpon Police Department will now have a range within a mile of their police station that we want to partner and make that available for the police department to go and train. When we started this project, we kind of worked backwards by looking at finding a site that would work for the size of the range, but also making sure that we built it as safely as possible. We went out and found Action Target, which is the #1 range construction, as in the components, bullet traps in the world. They do about 90% of all ranges in the world. So we contracted them. We also hired, who's with me tonight too, Arc3 Architecture, who most recently has done the Pinellas County Sheriff's shooting range on 118th Avenue. They did Shooters World in Tampa, very well versed in range construction and how to keep everyone safe. Also, David Bell with Landmark Engineering's here tonight. He was the civil engineer. And then Mr. David McComas, who's the developer with European Equities, is here tonight. And when we get to the questions, we have anything for them. But then the third thing we wanted to do with this range is obviously create a place of business that's going to create tax revenue for the city, and hopefully a lot of ancillary business that comes to the surrounding businesses. We talked to a couple people in Stonehenge who said that they used to walk up along US 19, but now because of the shape of the building and the people who are in the building, they don't feel comfortable doing that any longer. So hopefully that will go away. It'll be cleaned up and be a good place of business that will be a destination for people to want to come to Tarpon Springs. The only other range that would even be somewhat comparable to this is in Tampa, which is a good hour drive away. So this will probably pull residents from Pinellas County, Pasco County, as well as North Tampa, all to Tarpon Springs is our plan. The range does have 45, there's 45 total lanes. 7 of them will be 100-yard rifle ranges, which this will only be about the 10th range in the country open to the public with 100-yard ranges. There'll be 20 15-yard lanes and 18 25-yard lanes, which 9 of those are the tactical lanes that I had previously discussed. To answer a couple of the questions with the bullet trap and in the wear down, the steel that's in the smaller lanes are 1/4-inch ballistic steel. They're good for 15 years. After 15 years, they come in and replace it. But before you even get past the ballistic steel, behind that, we have 2 layers of tilt wall construction, which are in your documents. It's technical review sheet D, if you want to look at it. We also have a larger one here. Your outside layer of concrete is 7 1/4 inches of 4,000 PSI reinforced concrete. You have an air gap with insulation for sound. And then you have the inside layer of concrete's 5 1/2 inches. So you'd have to, the bullet would somehow have to get through 1/4-inch ballistic steel, through 5 1/4 concrete, through an air gap, and then an additional 7 1/4 inches of concrete. It's not going to happen. We talked to Action Target and Length. They've never had a bullet that they've been made aware of leave one of their ranges. So we don't see this being a question. When we designed the range, we took into account, obviously, the residents to the north and west. And if you look in your plan, just like speaking, the way the sound and the voice goes, we directed the lanes downwind away from the residents. So not only do you have all these sound buffers and wall buffers, the direction that a gun would shoot would be away from any houses as well. You can point to it. The long range would shoot towards US 19, and the shorter ranges would shoot to the south, more towards commercial. We did provide a letter from the acoustical engineer who ran through all types of scenarios, went on site, and you will not, as Ms. Vincent said, with the ambient noise, will not hear bullets past the property line. So we've invested a lot of time, energy, money. We've traveled the country looking at ranges to make sure we built something that's as safe as possible, that's going to be a lasting business model that people can enjoy, can be educated. We're going to offer classes 7 days a week, everything from women's classes, gun safety classes, and then, like we said, we hope to partner a lot with law enforcement as well. I think that's about it. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. We're not asking for anything special. There's no variances. Everything is to the land use code, and we just hope that we have your continued support, and we'll get this project going. And hopefully the buildings will come down soon. Right now, we're letting all the local municipalities train in on police departments, fire departments, from Tampa through Tarpon Springs, Pinellas County.
Okay, if you'll stay there, and we'll start with questions for you. Ms. St. Arnold?
I have no questions right now, thank you.
Mr. Stavropoulos, questions for the applicant?
No, sir, everything's pretty much answered for me.
Mr. Vincent?
Very well addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any plans for, in your education, working with youth groups such as Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts?
Yes, sir. We have already looked at, there's 2 associations that we've already signed up for, the NRA, and then also the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And they set a lot of the guidelines and precedents on the classes, but there would be anywhere in the neighborhood from 20 to 30 different classes offered. One of the ones that we already have the listing on is for youth, and that could definitely be tailored to Boy Scouts or any youth organization.
No further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Carr?
I have a question about, thanks for coming tonight and your time and presenting. I have a question about the lead cleanout. It looks like it's in the western side of the building, I believe. Is that going to be inside or outside? I saw the kind of the state of the art, what you call the holding tank. Looks like a 55-gallon bucket of some sort.
Yes, I should have touched on that a little bit. Part of Action Target, who manufactures all this, it's called the lead total containment system. So what happens is when someone shoots a bullet, there's a bullet trap with a little slit. There's some blow-ups in your handouts. But the bullet goes into that slit, and it goes into a deceleration chamber, slows down. It then, once it loses its momentum, it drops, goes into a conveyor system that conveyors it, goes all the way up and drops it into a 55-gallon drum that's contained. So what it does is none of the workers ever have to touch the lead. Any of the dust goes into 5-gallon buckets that then every month a EPA certified company, that's the governing body who comes and inspects it and certifies it, they come in, they remove the 5-gallon buckets, they're sealed, the 55-gallon drums are carted off, new ones are installed, and then those, the lead dust and the lead fragments, bullet fragments, are then recycled ultimately into to more bullets. One more thing on that, as far as EPA is the governing body as well as OSHA, but what most gun ranges do and what this gun range will do as well is when a new employee is hired, they do a baseline blood analysis that shows where your lead level's at. And then they're done quarterly as well to make sure that there's never a rise in the lead levels of any of the employees. Also, EPA can come in at any time on a gun range and demand the same things and inspect your premises as well.
Excuse my ignorance or naiveness of lead and bullets. Is it just in the cartridge, or is it actually discharged when you shoot the gun?
No, it's the balls or the fragments that are in the bullet that go down range.
Okay.
So when you shoot a gun, that's what puts the hole in the paper target.
Okay, so there's not an issue then with air handlers and that aspect with recycling the air. I know you said there's some type of blood test that goes on for the employees.
Right. No, this air runs through a very high-tech, expensive system that it actually moves the air. The air is blown from behind you, and it moves 10 feet per second, 75 feet per minute, and takes the air from your back. So when a pistol, a rifle discharges, you can actually watch the smoke just go down range, and it goes through that same slit and runs through the air conditioning and all the HEPA filters and the different filters. The air that's coming out from behind you is actually cleaner than air just taken from outside.
Okay, well, that's being on 19, that's very believable. Couple questions. We got this report from the acoustical consultants. The second paragraph states gun noise and ranges is expected to be inaudible at the mobile home park located on the west side. I guess, and the choice of vocabulary, it says expected. So my question then would be, what happens if it's not? I guess do we have an issue with that for the residents of the mobile home park? And then I want to respect your rights of a property owner where your development, but I want to respect the rights also of the of your neighbor. So when it says expected, that's my concern, is what happens when it's not.
Inaudible.
Right. But before that it says it's expected to be inaudible. What happens if it is? I mean, have we talked about that at all? I mean, it sounds like you have a pretty thick wall to begin with, so I'm not too concerned, but you have to kind of ask both questions when you're up here looking from that side.
Right.
There.
With the elaborate wall system, which you won't see in any other gun range around here, at least in the installations, we don't have any reason to expect that you would hear that. I mean, it does. The decibel levels that are stated there, if you did hear anything, still would fall underneath any Pinellas County. I believe City of Tarpon falls under Pinellas County sound level, but it would be below any decibel level that Pinellas County states in their code.
Okay, as long as you're pretty sure that's not going to be an issue. So, two other questions. They're not really dealing with the building itself, but again, like I asked Ms. Vincent, it looks like there's Laurel Oaks planning the bulb outs. I just wanted clarification if that's the case or not. It's page
We
6, I think.
We could change them. We just went by the City of Tarpon Springs tree.
Right, tree. Yeah, I understand. It's
Right.
The aspect that's going to destroy your parking lot. So that's a concern I have for you. And
Okay.
also being close to your building, the roots are going to disrupt your building's foundation and structure too. If you lose, you would want to use like something like a live oak, or even a holly in those types of situations, or even a palm tree, for that also. So
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll
that's
make
something
a note
I
of
would
that.
say we need to address, because you're going to end up paying for it down the road anyways.
Right.
Also, I would suggest some type of native Hedge, you have there's no, just this proposed hedge, just not a description of what type of bush. A dwarf Walter viburnum is a good 3-foot hedge.
Ligustrum viburnum. Right.
There's ligustrums I wouldn't recommend using as a hedge because they're not really served as a hedge because they become leggy. Just from my experience with ligustrum, they're more of a small ornamental tree. So I'd suggest avoid ligustrums if you could also.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Chairman asked for my background. I've worked landscaping for many years. I'm not currently in that role right now, but that's my background. So,
Are you charging them for this, or?
Yeah.
We did also too plan on heavily buffering, the residential areas going above and beyond, and then also, for the sound benefits, once the future warehouses go up too, those would be an additional, buffer to that west property line as well.
Yeah, and it looked like you had the red cedars in there, and that pretty much creates a green wall itself. I mean, you can't see through those things, and it's a nice buffer. So right now, I think you answered all the questions I have. I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you for your landscape knowledge too.
Let me ask you, how was Tarpon Springs selected for your business?
It's actually a lot to do with where other gun ranges are. If you take and you look at where one of the newest ones in Tampa is, there's one down on Almerton Road. There's a small one up in Port Richey. There was a need for one in this area. The size of the property also worked perfectly too. You need a lot of distance or depth on it to be able to use a 100-yard range, and that site worked out good. And a lot of the people that will have a part in it are located around this area as well.
Did you do the demographics of the population in the area?
Yes, they did run I don't have that information with me right now, but they did run demographics on the area. Yes.
Okay, and what distances do you expect people to come from?
The National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is the ones that run all the demographics on the area, say that you can pull people from up to an hour away. Ideally, people don't, if you talk to some of the residents of Tarpon now, don't like driving to Tampa to go to a gun range. But, I mean, generally probably 30, 40 minutes.
Okay, and what's going to be the highest power rifle that is going to be used on the 100-yard range?
These were all tested at 308, right? Yeah, a 50 caliber or a 308 rifle is what the range
the
material.
50 caliber. That was my next question. That's really a very heavy round. Will that get through the first wall? I mean, that will knock a horse down or probably go halfway through a tank.
Well, that's what
I watch the military channel a lot.
That's what the steel and the systems are rated for. That's what they've been proven for years and years and years to handle.
Okay, so we'll stop at 50 caliber.
Yes.
Okay, all right,
and so will all the ballistic glass. If you look at the building, the entire building has this concrete construction. A bullet cannot leave this building.
Okay, and the EPA report, you said that's every month?
No, every quarter.
Oh, okay, every quarter.
They're allowed to come whenever they want and check a gun range, right?
Now, will the city get that copy of that report?
I could not tell you that. I don't know if they.
I'm going to ask Renee, who would be responsible for that, or is that a city function?
It really is not. It's an EPA function.
EPA.
If there was a problem, the EPA would shut you down immediately.
Yeah, I know
No doubt in my mind.
Okay. Is there any mercury in the rounds besides the lead? Any
No, no
any mercury at all?
No, sir.
Okay, and the air quality, so you're saying the fans are going to drive the smoke away from the shooter?
Correct. The airflow, how you would have air vents in your house.
Right.
This is a linear air vent that goes all the way across the back of the shooter's back behind them that is creating a pressure that takes the smoke from behind them all the way downrange.
Okay,
There's-
is there a negative, I know in operating rooms, they have negative pressure, so.
Yeah, it's
all the-
a negative pressure room.
It is a negative
Correct.
pressure.
You have an airlock before you go into each range, double doors. One
Okay.
door opens, come in, closes before the next door opens.
Okay, so it is a negative airflow. Okay. And who evaluates or checks the audible decibels outside of the building?
The acoustical engineer will sign off on it. If there were,
No, I know initially, but let's say somebody like, I think Mr. Carr, same question, somebody hears something, or they start hearing these things, is there anything that can be done about that?
well, they would, I'm sure they would call code enforcement, and it would go to code enforcement, and then it would be addressed
Okay.
through that avenue. I would believe that's,
That would be the
Is that-
correct avenue, yes.
Oh.
And our police do have the ability to measure, decibel levels. They have
Oh, okay,
computers for
good.
that.
Okay, I was just, because you may have complaints coming in, and I just wanted to know how that was going to be handled. Now, the warehouses are going to be built when?
sorry about that.
Did you want to come up and speak?
It's, the warehouse, we're looking at a time frame of 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
It's additional storage for the range, so depending on how popular, how busy it would get, then we would need the additional storage sooner.
Okay.
One more quick thing on the ventilation. Each range has its own air conditioned system. So you have this large unit on the roof that the air comes out of the unit, comes down the range, pushes down the range, comes back up and runs through that unit. So the same air that would feed like the retail space, for instance, is different units in what each range has.
Okay, now, each range is not individually marked off or built. I mean, it's just open.
No, they're separated.
Oh, they are?
Like concrete
All the
concrete
way
walls,
to the target?
doors.
All the way to the target?
Correct.
And what is that material in those walls?
The walls down the side are poured solid concrete.
No, I
walls.
mean the walls in each shooting lane.
Right, they're solid concrete.
Oh, they are?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
It's per
Per
group of
group
lanes.
of lanes, per range.
Okay, like the 25 feet?
Yeah, so your
15.
group of 9 25-yard lanes.
Okay.
That's one group.
Okay.
Where the shooter stands, you have a compartment
Right.
with, glass, or a solid ballistic wall that separates it.
Oh, okay. Okay, Mr. Jalusis?
The only question I have left is, do you guys have any kind of average number of how many barrels of lead the facility produces per month?
It's,
I mean, I know
It's hard- it's
I know
hard-
it's dependent on capacity.
correct. Yeah, on average, they recycle from, there's 2 different containment areas on this, one for the rifle range, one for the smaller lanes. The smaller ones will fill up probably a 55-gallon drum monthly.
Only
The
one? Oh, okay, all right.
Unless it becomes so busy, but that's what they've told us the average is. The rifle range will probably be 3 months just because a lot less rounds, a lot
Okay.
less users.
I got you.
Yep.
That's fine, thank you.
Mr. Parker?
Most of my questions have already been answered. I only have one left. What kind of numbers do you guys anticipate doing in a typical year? I'm assuming as big as 19 is, it's going to be plenty big enough to handle any incoming traffic.
Right. We don't really have the exact numbers. Ideally, typically Friday through Sunday is your busy time at a gun range. we wouldn't open till late morning because no one's usually there at 7 to shoot in the morning. But you like to have, Friday through Sunday, you have 45 lanes. You'd like to have a person on each one of those lanes, and then you have a person waiting. So ideally, it's, 90 people per hour shooting is your goal.
All right, that's busy. That's really the only question I had. Did they do a study on the traffic flow, or
Yes.
they did? Okay,
Yes.
and all that's,
Yes, sir, their projected traffic numbers are actually expected to generate a little bit less peak hour traffic as well as 24-hour traffic than when the restaurant and the hotel were in operation, and that's what we use for a comparison, so.
all right. Yeah, that's the only question I had. Everything else was answered.
Mr. Protus?
I want to thank you for all the work that you and your group have done with the city of Tarpon Springs. The planning department has really earned their salary for the year with this one. You were very thorough, came across with everything I understand that they wanted. And Renee, I want to congratulate your department because y'all worked very, very hard. If this is approved through the commission, how long will it be before you open your front doors?
If it is approved tonight and then next month by city commission, it would go into the permitting process, which should put us on a June 1st groundbreaking. With the site, we have about a month of site work that would need to be done before construction would start, and our anticipated goal would be the end of the first quarter of 2015.
Very good. In our backup, is it going to look like what you've given us here? This is beautiful.
Yes, that's what the full set of plans have been done to.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your program here. Thank you for coming to Tarpon. There is some opposition from citizens on this, but I think it's once they realize what it is and how it really works, the fear will be gone, and I'm looking forward to you coming to Tarpon Springs. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and we definitely want to be good neighbors, and so much of it is just educating everyone, and we hope to do that with the meeting with Stonehenge next week to give them the same program and let them understand what it's really about.
Stonehenge has very fine residents. They're very knowledgeable, and you'll have a very good meeting with them. They're good people to talk to.
Great. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Mr. Carr has a question.
I just had a couple more questions I meant to ask. The lighting in the parking lot, it looks like the west isn't going to be an issue because there's a retention pond, but then just to the north of you, there's looks like some residents right there in that area. A concern of mine would be just make sure when the lighting is projected from the parking lot lights that you're not flooding into their windows. That would be a nuisance of some sort, I would think. Is that adequately planned in this?
No, they're part of the architectural plan, so there's a photometric for the whole site that's been done.
Okay.
Also, the site to the north is elevated higher than our site will be, so you'll already lose approximately half of your pole height just in the difference in the elevations of the two properties.
Okay. And then the fence, it looks like a PVC fence. Is that going to run down the residential lines? Is that going to be by commercial lines too, or is that going to run?
No, there's currently a fence already on the west property line.
Like a chain link fence, it said, right? Is that right?
No, it's a PVC
It is-
fence.
okay.
Yes, and then we'll install a opaque fence on the north property line as well as a landscape buffer. There will not be anything on the south or obviously the east side.
Is that going to run to 19, or is that just going to stop at the residential?
It will stop at the residential property corner. That you have the commercial, the old Waffle House is right there.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. And you have a tank out front. Is that an actual tank, or is it an art piece? Or
No,
what is
it's going to be an actual
Real stuff.
non-firing tank.
Okay.
We'll let the Tarpon Police Department use it if they need it for anything.
Thanks.
What are your hours?
They're proposing 10 to 9, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
7 days.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant at this time from any board member? Mr. Seropoulos?
Just one
Go ahead.
brief one. Yeah, a lot of times everyone's overrating the rounds that are being fired, and it's not a big percentage of lead that's actually being collected. There's other forms of, the rounds. It's like brass and
Right.
all that other stuff, so.
Yeah, the lead is actually a
it's a
much
small
smaller
percentage.
part than what you think
Right.
in the
So
round.
it's not as big as what we were
And the
just
brass
discussing.
is recycled as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention it.
And the one last thing I should have touched on earlier is this building, we've sent it out. There's 148 different subcontractors and vendors who are taking part in the bid process for the construction right now. And talking with them, the estimated construction jobs this will produce is somewhere between 150 and 200 jobs. And there'll be somewhere between 40 and 45 subcontractors contracted to handle all the different scopes at this building construction. It's a very technically advanced building and will take a lot of people to construct it, so it's a lot of jobs as well for the construction industry.
Okay, I wanted to ask staff, when can we have Mrs. Lemons speak?
She's a staff member. I mean, she can, I'm going to defer to the city attorney in terms of process. She probably should have spoke when I was speaking, but,
Okay, can we have her now, or can we have her?
Yeah, my recommendation would be to take her before you open it to the
Okay, Karen, did you want to come up now and give us your report, please?
I do want to say, just for the record, so that people understand what Ms. Lemons is about to, this is not frankly relevant to the decision-making process. This is more informational than anything. It's not considered relevant to whether or not you would approve or deny this application tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't really have a report, but just to make some comments from the development aspect from the city. The city is pleased to see a dilapidated building that's been sitting there for over 10 years vacant to be revitalized, not only for taking out the old Days Inn and motel and IHOP, but to help to revitalize the entire corridor. And to the extent that you've heard the presentation from Reload, hopefully that you're happy with the presentation that they've made and the safety aspect of the facility. It is a permitted use. Again, from the economic development aspect, we're looking at, there are several properties that are like this throughout the city that are either dilapidated, have been sitting vacant for quite some time. One is the former nursing home that we're really excited passed the referendum just a week ago. That's another big property that's been sitting there that we're going to revitalize. This is another big property on US 19, which is a perfect spot for a facility like this. And they've previously told us that the facility should attract about 25 to 40 permanent jobs. Mr. Floyd talked about the temporary construction jobs, which is a big aspect. There's also additional jobs that come from that, from the construction workers who are going to be working there for several months, purchasing supplies and goods from area businesses that will help revitalize the area. Also suppliers who will be contracted to provide goods and services for the facility once it opens. So those are other jobs that will help our employment area in the region. So we're excited by it. These are the types of projects that are good for Tarpon Springs and will help us with our property tax values. I know they don't have an estimate yet on the final cost of the building. We had our development services director take a look at the technical aspects of the drawings and things that were brought forward, and we just took a rough guess. If the building was estimated to be a value of $10 million, it would be about $54,000 in property taxes coming to the city every year, and that's just to Tarpon Springs from our millage rate, not countywide. So that's a significant amount of money and something that we're looking forward to. So outside of that, and again, as Ms. Vinson said, it's not really germane to your discussion tonight, but I think it's important to point out some of the economic development aspects of a project like this one.
Okay, just stay there a minute. I'm going to ask the board if they have any questions for Mrs. Lemons. Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you.
Your report. Okay. At this time, I'd like to ask, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against this application or this site plan approval process. Have you been sworn in? Okay, come forward, stand at the lectern. Let us have your name and address, please.
My name is Joseph Rainier. I live at 1396 Wellington Street in Tarpon Springs, Florida. I got wind of this a little late, so I got 4 minutes to talk, so I'm going to try to speak as quickly as possible. I noticed at the board that there was a lot of questions asked, and they were good questions about this property and the development that the individuals are going to project on the property. However, in the beginning, it looked like a lot of the members did not know what a gun range is or the composition of building one. I looked up and did a study that was done for an indoor firing range by the Navy Environmental Health Center. It was regarding indoor small range gun range. And the issues that have to be concerned is about the lead that's being driven by these bullets in the air. Comments made by Mr. James down there about it's very small. Don't believe that for a second. He would have never invested a ton of money into a high-tech exhaust system if it was very visceral.
Well,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You can't
Okay.
question.
No, I'm not questioning him.
I know, but you can't ask questions of the board.
No, I'm not. I'm making
This
comments.
is just, you have 4 minutes to just let us know how you feel and what you think.
Yes, sir. So what I'm basically saying to the board is before you approve this project, I recommend an EPA study. Yes, they're going to have inspections, as he says, once a quarter, and I believe you even mentioned if you get a copy of that. And he also said that they would shut them down if there's a problem. I think we should better find out before it becomes a problem, because it can contaminate our water and our air, and there's a community that lives around that. I understand that the building that is currently on a project is run down, beaten down, and you want to see it come down, you want to see a new project go up, you want to get the economic monies from that project, and I can appreciate that with the city. But let's not get a problem in there that we're going to be sorry we did without doing the proper studies, and I think an EPA study would be appropriate as it relates to the lead in this facility. Second, do you want to bring, 95 people per hour to that range? You're bringing 95 people per hour with guns to the city of Tarpon Springs. Is that something we want in the city? As we all know, there's already a problem with guns and people that are not responsible with them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against this application? Have you been sworn in? All right, come on up and let the attorney swear you in, and then we'd like to have your name and address, please. And that microphone, you can remove from that and hold it close to your mouth so we can hear you better if you like.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Would you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I thank you, sir.
My name is Marty Peters. I live at 1702 Heritage Oaks Court. And while I got up here to say that I was opposed to it, it was just really for an opportunity to speak, because I'd basically just like some questions clarified a little more. I was glad to see the committee asking questions. For the people in Stonehenge, who might not be as old as I am since I'm on Social Security, I just wanted to check on the sound a little bit more. When you're talking about the decibels, are the people in Stonehenge going to be hearing all day long? Or are they going to be hearing something like this that still meets the decibel requirements? Or is it going to be something like this? There's a difference there, and I think it would be good to get the decibel level clarified a little. And I'm hoping that it's solid, because it would be nice to have that type of business and development in Tarpon. Another issue I would like you to ask a few questions about is this standard practice to have a gun range in sort of right next to a residential area? And it may just be me. It's my kind of vision. I picture gun ranges out in the countryside where it's not around people and dogs and things. But if this is the normal thing, I think it would be good for us to know that too.
And lastly, I'd like to know a little bit more about the air quality there for the lead that supposedly is in the air. It sounds like you're doing a lot to try and keep it from causing any contamination. But does it get vented out so that at some point the air is going to be drifting into Stonehenge? The wind currents change, so I know you're trying to drift it in a different direction, but then it's going to go over to some other residential area because they're all around there. So I guess what I would hope the committee would do would be to ask a few more questions about that air quality. And when all is said and done, I hope all of the answers are positive and this does get done here. So even though I'm speaking against at this point in time, I could also get up and speak for it if all of these things were answered satisfactorily. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against this application for plan approval? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone here who wishes to speak for this application? Have you been sworn in, sir? All right, please come up to the lectern. The attorney will swear you in, and let us have your name and address, please.
Good evening, sir. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name
You
and
have
address for the
4
record.
minutes, sir.
40 minutes?
4.
Just kidding.
Yeah, 40.
I'm all right. Thank you. My name's Pete Sarukas. I reside at 827 Seminole Boulevard, Tarpon Springs, Florida. Several things I want to do. First of all, I want to congratulate the gentleman. I think it was mentioned that they built the range on 118th Avenue in Pinellas Park, St. Pete. I happen to work at the property adjacent to that. I'm an enforcement officer for Pinellas County. I work in a facility that's highly guarded by the EPA, DEP, and Homeland Security. As far as the filtration system on the gun ranges, we produce emissions from our plant at Solid Waste Division that are zero emissions. So it's very, very possible with today's technology to have zero emissions and to collect any and all pollutants. The range out there, I have to congratulate them. It's an outdoor range. And as the gentleman said earlier, that are they going to be hearing the banging? I literally stand at the corner of our property. It's the sheriff's office outdoor range, and I hear tapping. The baffling system, the noise containing system is incredible. I encourage you to pass by and look at it. The third thing I want to say is I just knew that this was going to turn into a gun thing. But the gentleman did say something real important, and I appreciate the last sentence that he said, was that, do we need any more people with firearms coming into Tarpon Springs? Being a retired police officer, City of Tarpon Springs, and a intelligence contractor for the United States government for 10 years, both retired, currently working for Pinellas County, I can tell you this. If you don't think that there's guns coming into Tarpon Springs, and you're that naive, you shouldn't go to the range. And if you're going to make a comment, you need to be educated about it. There's no issue at all with safety at ranges. These are highly trained people. I've been with firearms for close to 40 years. That firearms themselves, you can sit it here and you can come back in 10 years. It's not going to jump up and bite you or shoot you. Put it in the wrong person's hand, and it's going to do harm. And I suggest this. You want to deal with statistics? Deal with DEUI. If the gun is going to be an issue, then maybe the gentleman should buy a horse, because a car is more dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for this application? Have you been sworn in? Okay, please come forward.
Good evening, sir. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gustavo Trujillo. I live in 109 North Groves Avenue. More than talk for or against the project, which I think that Tarpon Springs can use another business, I think it's good. I had questions about the tactical range. Is it a fair statement that tactical range involves obviously tactical arms? Correct?
They can, you can ask the question. They will have the opportunity to answer that after
Okay. All right.
after we hear everybody.
All right.
That's fine. But don't,
all right.
this
So my
is not the
understanding would be
time
that-
to question the applicant.
Okay. So my understanding would be that there's also tactical rounds. Would those, within the tactical round type of bullets that they will be used, are there any tracing rounds that will be used in this? Because my understanding is that these are coated in uranium and that sort of thing. So I don't know if that could be also another concern for possible pollution. Also, you know, you guys spoke about the walls of the facility, which, you know, sound like there will be more than enough for what the facility will be doing. But what about how does the roof system of the building work with regards to protection against bullets going through? So those were my main questions that I wanted a little bit more clarification on. And that was
Okay.
Other than that, you know, business is welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for this application? Yes, sir. Come on up and.
I'm going to give you just a second. Now's as good a time as any. If there's anybody else sitting out there who would like to come up and speak, please do so now. Raise your hand and be sworn. We can get this done a little faster. All right, sir. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but? I do. Much appreciated.
I'm Michael Trill, 612 Sandy Hills Avenue, Tarpon Springs, Florida, 34689. I'm speaking on behalf as a private citizen, my two children back there. For those of you who know me, one of the reasons I am in law enforcement is because my father taught me a very good responsibility around firearms. Part of that was going to the range. I have since passed that on to my children, who have already been to the range, one a couple times. The problem is the distance from our location and the properties themselves. For indoor ranges, there are a few around here. The question was raised whether or not they're normally in the rural area. Back when we had a lot of rural areas, I'm sure they were. There's not a lot of rural areas left to have gun ranges. If you go up to Ridge Road, there's a small indoor range where you can't shoot a rifle, and that is indoor on Ridge Road itself, just east of 19. If you go down to US 19 down to Pinellas Park, there is an indoor range. At the time it was built or renewed, it was state-of-the-art. From what I understand, possibly, allegedly, this could be even more state-of-the-art than that one, and that is also on US 19. Over in Tampa, there are other ones as well. So one of the things I like about this is, number one, we brought up the development of the city. That place is an eyesore. It's been an eyesore for 10 years. So it's nice that we're going to have a non-eyesore. Number two, it's nice that I don't have to drive to go to an indoor range with a rifle range over 30-some minutes or possibly up to an hour to take my children to go handle handguns responsibly. I like the concept of being able to actually just go around the corner. I'm familiar with Action Target. I'm familiar with what they did with the Pinellas County outdoor range, which is fantastic for a law enforcement range. But this is going to offer something for law enforcement and the community. And as a father and as a citizen, I can take my children there. I'm familiar with Action Target. I know they've done their research with it. I know they've done their research with the lead and the emptying of it. It's not a fly-by-night mom-and-pop stand coming in, going to be shooting and just pulling out the lead with a dustpan. This is Action Target, who is very highly respected in the realm of targets. So everybody hires them. It's expensive, but it does a job, and they have done studies rather than us just putting together and saying, well, let's just go put some studies together. Action Target has done studies, and I'm sure those can be reviewed if they haven't already been supplied by the people building this. But I'm all for it. I love the concept of having this commercial property here, a recreational commercial property here. I love being able to leave my house in 5 to 10 minutes and go over there. And it was brought up before about rounds and stuff. Those have also been studies done. Action Target does this for a living. That's how they make their money. They sell it, they install it, they have people come in and build these things. So it's not a mom and pop fly by night, go out back, shoot some rounds in a target. It's a lot of thought process, and their reputation and their money relies on it, that being Action Target as well as the people that are building it. So I'm all for it because my children will hopefully one day grow up to do good things.
Thank you.
They will own guns as well.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've covered both sides of the application, and I believe that the applicant has 10 minutes to come up and give a rebuttal statement. There were some questions about the air quality and some other things. If you could enlighten us, I think you already have, but if you could reiterate what you do to clean the air in the range itself.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not even going to touch the whole gun control,
No,
question.
we're not talking about that. We're just talking about the quality of the air.
But as the last gentleman did speak, Action Target is, like I said before, the worldwide leader in developing these range systems, the containment systems, the lead systems. They've never been shut down. They meet or exceed military EPA standards. I mean, they've done everything in their power, all their research, all their homework. That's why we went to Action Target, because they guarantee it. They have the proven track record. One of the reasons Action Target and ARC-3, our architect, was brought into Pinellas County's range is because they used to shoot into a dirt hill. And this new range on 118th has this same system that collects all the lead and recycles it now because of their concerns. So, I mean, it goes through a series of filters. It actually costs $30 an hour to run one of these ranges for the ventilation system because of all the filtration, all the layers of filters that go through the entire system that filter this air. And, their paperwork and their reports show that the air is actually cleaner when it recycles and goes through their system than air just out, as it was said earlier, along US 19. The one other comment about the roof system, also that same section D that's in your handout, your walls are concrete, your ceiling, we have steel plate, steel trusses, steel deck. You have a 5-inch structural steel concrete slab, a layer of foam, and then another layer of 3 inches of concrete. And then you also have all the range safety baffles. So there's not a way for a bullet to leave through the walls, vertically through the ceiling. You're just not going to have a bullet leave the range.
Okay, thank you.
I can't tell you the chemical makeup of tracer rounds. We don't plan on using tracer rounds. It was brought up that some of the chemicals that make them, but as far as the tactical range, they would still have to use the same bullets or ammunition that the range is rated for. Really, the only difference in the tactical range is you have targets that move what they call a knife edge, move back, so the police department can program a system so you don't know which one of the targets are going to turn for their response. It's not, they're using some, ballistic cutting bullets or anything like that. It's just the type of targeting system that's installed in the range that makes it tactical pop-up targets and so forth.
Would you elaborate on what Mr. Peters, if I may, Mr. Chairman, about the tapping? What he said when they shoot. And you did elaborate on that previously. Maybe you need to do it again, that they're not going to hear anything.
Yeah, I mean, you're in Stonehenge, you're not going to hear anything. I mean, the sound of the cars is going to be louder than anything that would be emitted over to that. You got to remember too, this building in the site plan, you're still another, couple hundred feet away before you would even get to that
Well, I wanted
mobile
that
home
answer
park.
for them to be
Okay.
clarified. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Does staff have any other comments, summaries, rebuttals?
No, sir.
Any board questions for staff at this time? Anything? Okay, I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting and entertain a motion for this application for the site plan approval.
I'll move to approve the application 1408.
Second.
Just one of the stipulations, we went through in detail a lot of information. There's a lot of due diligence that was done already from the applicant. I think they did a great job presenting, able to answer our questions through and through. So, again, I would just make the strong suggestion about the parking lot issues with the trees. Sounds like a meaningless aspect, but it could create a pretty big damage later on in the future. So I would add that to that also.
Okay.
All right.
Any other?
Yeah, before we get too far, is that part of your motion, Mr. Carr?
Yes. Is that allowed or not?
Frankly, no.
Give me a quick
I mean,
reason real
you were kind of making you can certainly make a recommendation to.
I'm making a recommendation.
Okay, can you go ahead and state it clearly then, what you recommend exactly?
On top of what staff has already done?
Yes.
Simple aspect of swapping out the design of trees with laurel oaks with some type of live oak or palm tree. That is required by the city. Native aspects are encouraged to.
Okay. Okay. We have a second. And did you get that, Catherine? Okay. Discussion?
I think they've met every requirement by the city that they have established through our planning and zoning, and they've gone above and beyond with working with the city and adding more than what the city has asked for.
Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Vincent.
Like Sergeant Trill, I too have been shooting ever since I was big enough to learn how to handle a gun responsibly. My dad taught me, and I've taught my sons. And I'm glad that we will have a place closer if this gets passed, because right now, if I want to go shooting, I have to go all the way down to Pinellas Park, and that's quite a trip to do that. And it'd be nice to have some place. I've never shot on an indoor range. I've reviewed the site plans, and I'm impressed with the lead handling protection for the lead as well as the ventilation, and so I think that's, all those concerns as well as the noise. That's one of the biggest concerns also, and I'm very much satisfied that it will not be a nuisance to the neighbors, and so I hope this plan is approved and hope it goes forward.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Roll call.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
Yes.
Mr. Gialusis?
Yes.
Ms. St. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Chairman Francis?
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Welcome, and you have a lot of work to do. Okay. Okay, we have any staff comments at this time?
Glad to turn Rodney back over to you next month.
Yes.
Will he be back?
He will be. I hope he's coming
Okay.
I just want to add that somebody said about planning and zoning earning their money. They have more than earned their money since the day they came here, and I think it's time to give them a raise.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yes, that's a board recommendation. Okay, board comments? Any more? Entertain a motion for adjournment?
So move. I can do that
Second.
one.
Okay. Close.